بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين شفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وحبيب قلوبنا بالقاسم محمد اللهم صل وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين وأصحابه المنتجبين ولعنة الله الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد، السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. My apologies because I haven't had the time to prepare properly and to make proper notes, so bear with me, but inshallah I hope it won't be so tedious that it would not be so to be so unbearable. Hopefully we can get through this properly. Today what we will be presenting will be a very broad introduction into our attitude towards Quran and how maybe we ought to think about the whole process of interpreting the Quran and benefiting from the Quran. So it will be a very broad introduction talking about certain principles. And before that, even broadly, we will introduce the topic of human being and the place of the human being within this world. Now, as Rumi states, and we are allowed to agree and to disagree with any scholar and thinker, but what a mashallah, phenomenal, inspired, intuitive individual he was when we read his works. And he states that human being was the last in creation, according to his own cosmology. We don't know what has come after the human being. Since the inception of human being, Khallaqun Alim, Allah might have created whatever. But according to him, human being is the final in creation. The universe precedes him by almost eternity, if we can say that. But then, is not the masterpiece the final piece of the jigsaw that comes and fits into place? Actually, when we strive to achieve anything, the final piece claims or brings about the utmost glory of the work that we are performing. In that way, the whole of this universe was a prelude for the coming of the human individual. He is the masterpiece of God. The whole universe predates us by an extent unimaginable. In fact, we can't even conceive of time when it comes to universe, for it may be product of the universe itself. But this human being, despite his insignificant existence, think of the human being in terms of our control over this world and the universe. We have none. If we were to understand our own existence properly, we will say that our existence and non-existence actually are one and the same. Before we came into existence, me and you as individuals of the human species, the world already existed. We did not determine any factor because we weren't there. Everything was determined for us. Our parents, our genes, our color, our social circumstances, nothing was of our determination. Everything was determined. Now that we are here in this world, even now we find that what we understand as free will and discretion is something very arbitrary. A close inspection of life will show that we really do not have any free will. But the amazing thing is we are still responsible, and truly we are responsible. For me to have come here today and to give these talks, when I see myself, at every point, all the factors were coming together, and at the end I was taking a decision. Even that decision in itself was determined. I drove in a car. The car was not of my own making. The road was already there, the gravity already existed. And the thing that when I was invited to come here, I said yes, that too was determined by the way in which I am. But when I made that choice that yes, I will come, I hold myself responsible for it. Leave alone the whole of this universe. I don't control gravity, nor the ratio of air within the atmosphere, nor the way I breathe. I don't ensure that the sun will rise or it will set, or the clouds will shower upon us. I don't control any of the cosmological events. Neither do I have in my control to organize the human community at large. It's all interacting and it's well beyond my control. But even at my own very personal level, I find even the choices of words are out of my control. I use them because at that point my brain prompts me to use that particular word. But how that word was introduced to me at an earlier stage was not within my control. Even now, the way I gesture, the way I look, the way I sound, I choose to be this way, but all these factors are coming together. Right at the end, I make the decision that I'm going to, even me clapping my hand here, to be quite honest with you, it's my conditioning and the way I have been. But at every point, I feel I am responsible for it, and that's the beauty of existence. Now here, this is my position within the universe. That the universe is there, it's governing me and you equally. But at the same time, and by the way, during the duration of our lives, nothing is changing and nothing will change. The moon will stay the same, the sun will stay the same, the earth will stay the same, the ecological changes that take place, even they are very, very slow, nothing will change. Yet, I find in myself that as I change, the universe begins to change with me. It's quite amazing. I change my attitude, the universe changes. I change my outlook, the universe changes altogether. So on the one hand, I am totally subjected to the conditions that exist there, that are well beyond my control, whether outside of me or internal. It's all conditioned, it's all working away meticulously. Everything within the system is operating with precision. Nothing is out of place. On the other hand, as soon as I change from within, my whole universe changes. It's quite amazing. On the one hand, I am the created and the one who is the lowest in his existence. And on the other hand, I am the creator. As I change, everything with me begins to change. I change my outlook, the meaning of the world changes with me. I change my attitude, people don't mean the same to me anymore. So this shows to me that no, there is something quite grand at stake here. And if there is any point of reference, then that point of reference can only be in accordance with what we have just stated, that it is something within itself, and it is something in accordance with the way I understand. And both of these have to be truthful. It is as it is, and it is as I understand it to be. So here we are emphasizing simultaneously, one, this state of human being, in which human being is a part and parcel of something grand. And on the other hand, this human being is so unique that he is almost the author of all of the existence. We gave this example somewhere else, that now we are discovering that the observable universe is not what appears to us. It is so grand that we can't imagine. And in fact, we are in such a situation that we can't make sense of our existence. We can't understand infinity, we can't understand finiteness, and yet we are living it. But on the other hand, this grand universe that I observe with its greatness is something that I am able to capture. It may not be able to comprehend me. This is how grand I am. Then another thing that we need to understand here is that despite our uniqueness, despite the fact that we are the last in existence, and hence we are the masterpiece of existence. And look at this world, look at the tapestry in this galin or whatever. Look at the beautiful color coordination. Look at the softness of texture. Look at our emotions, sense perception. It's all phenomenally mind-blowing. Where there is this hot star that just burns and a cold moon that is full of craters and darkness, and then there is me and you in this world. So much variety, so much color, so much emotion, sense perception, such subtlety in this existence of ours. We are very, very unique in that way. But we must not be deluded by seeing this aspect of ours. We, as human beings, have too high an opinion of ourselves. We really do feel that I am the purpose of existence. Maybe we need to think again here, and this will set the first introduction. Maybe the whole of this existence has a purpose of its own, and me and you are a part and parcel of this purpose. And we need to talk about this for a few minutes. On the one hand, if we were to find superior intelligence in this universe, as soon as we can see them and gauge their intelligence, even potentially, we have become as great as they are. In that way, nothing can be greater than me. And that is the uniqueness of existence. The sixth Imam Salamullah alayhi states that an ant would presume its God to have antennas. And therefore an ant presumes itself to be the prime of existence. Similarly, me and you. Even if we were to find hyper-intelligent beings in the universe, the fact that we would be able to say, yes, they are superior than we are, but we understand them how they are, potentially we've become as great as they are. In that way, there is nothing greater than me and you. But that should not delude us. Maybe there is a purpose in this universe that is far greater than me and you are just parts of it. Just like a blade of grass. It presumes itself to be unique, and it presumes itself to be the center of the universe and existence. Little does it know that it serves a purpose beyond itself. And it's a part of a greater purpose that the world has. Same is our situation, maybe. That our purpose is a part of the greater human purpose. And the greater human purpose is a part of the greater purpose of life on the face of this earth. And the part of this and the greater purpose of earth is the purpose of the universe, so on and so forth. We understand this quite clearly, actually, if we were to go a little bit deeper into it. Majority of the 7 billion people that are existent within the world, they don't have any sense of purpose, a lofty sense of purpose that drives them, maybe. Even though there might be times in their lives, every individual, in which they feel something from within and they ask, why am I? Where am I? Where am I headed to? Why should I be? It's quickly dispelled by the mundane activities of life. So 7 billion people with this unique brain and unique existence are all going to waste in that way. If they were the prime purpose of existence, then each one of these 7 billion people ought to know what they are all about. But they don't. Then again, we read within the Quran that people will go to paradise and they will be happy with it. And those who will go to hell, obviously, they will suffer. Yet we find the Quran saying, وَلَدَيْنَا مَزِيدٌ, and we have more. And that mazid is beyond Jannah. And the Quran saying, وَرِضْوَانٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ, the great pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This all indicates that no, heaven is a purpose for some people, hell for other people. And then there are people who talk about the mazid that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has. It seems that we are not the be-all and end-all of existence and universe. The whole of existence has its own purpose, and we are falling in place with that grand purpose. And hence, the Imams have indicated when they talk about Allah, La ya'lam kayfa huwa illahu. No one knows how He is save He. And maybe that's why the Prophet has asked and prayed to Allah, Allahumma arini al-ashya kama hiya. O Lord, disclose to me the nature of things as they are. Even the grand Prophet could not appreciate the wholeness of the purpose that was there. And how can it be possible for him to do that? I strive for my purpose, you for yours, animals for theirs, 7 billion individuals for their own, every prophet, Musa, Isa for their own. Yet, it's their individual purposes. What about when we look at the overall existence? Surely, we come to this understanding that we are a part of the greater purpose that is there. Now, if that is understood, then we give the introductions into the methods of the interpretation of the Quran. The first thing that we need to understand is the importance of the world view. The way in which we understand our existence determines subsequently how we appreciate anything else. Now, if our worldview is one introduced by Plato, that there is an unchanging world, and then there is a world undetermined and being given shape to and form to. And if we operate in this dualistic model, then of course we will say there is a distinct spirit and there is a distinct body. There is a mind, if we were to listen to Descartes, there is a mind and there is a body. And then he fails to find the connection and has driven us all into this confusion. And of course then we will talk about duality. And duality will then govern our minds. And hence we will say there is something known as divine destiny, and I fall into place. And then there will be a great struggle to try and reconcile freedom of will with whatever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has destined. If we operate in that worldview, then everything that we do will be determined by our attempt to fit everything within that worldview. Our worldview determines for us the caliber and the quality of our life, our guidance from the Quran, the meaning of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the whole purpose of life. And if we were to understand ourselves as the prime subject of existence, then of course everything will be interpreted in our terms. If we have a fixed worldview, then that worldview will then govern every single thing about us. Now, let's talk with some examples. The Christians had this worldview taken from Plato, of this dualistic model of the divine, spiritual, and the material. And on the other hand, they had this cosmology of Aristotle, in which the earth was the center of the universe. Now, all their scientific observations were geared towards fitting all the data within this worldview of the centrality of the earth. What that did was, obviously, it hindered progression. And when people like Galileo and others challenged this, it was seen as heresy. They were then persecuted. Thought had stagnated. But a worldview, what it does is, it makes our observations and whatever we strive for deductive. That whatever we are doing, we are deducing to fit into that worldview. Now, if we have a worldview that Allah is the sole agent, by the way, we'll take this at 3 levels. general outlook, the nature of the Quran, and the human individual, who's the subject of guidance. Now here, when we look at the worldviews, when we look at the Mu'tazila and their understanding of the nature of God, that God is the sole agency. The Ash'ira, that God is the sole agency. What that led to was their interpretation of the Quran strictly in terms of those verses that gave all authority to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and excluded authority of all else. And therefore all the other verses were interpreted in the context of these verses that talked of the singular authority of God. On the other hand, the Mu'tazila, who claimed the justice of God, had to then, at a secondary level, advocate freedom of choice. And since now they advocate the freedom of choice, they would have to curtail the authority of God in creation and in action. They then just looked at those verses that spoke of human freedom of choice. And they then interpret the other verses that talk about the sole authority of God in the light of these verses. It becomes extremely deductive. Me and you, being Shias, we have a particular outlook. In that outlook, we will then attempt to interpret life, interact with life, interpret guidance exactly as it fits within that outlook. The great point of defeat here is that a subject who is to be guided, who has this unique opportunity to open up to existence and to embrace existence, is actually dictating the course of existence and imposing upon existence. This is the problem of having a worldview, that it makes our methodology a deductive one. Now, of course, Newton and others in their scientific methodology, they introduced the inductive methodology, in which we observe things as they are and try and arrive at an understanding of the world as it is. But the human being can never be free of fixed worldviews, can never be free. And we want to propose maybe a possible or a plausible way out, which is already known as well, but want to articulate it. So he said, no, we need to uphold the inductive method, and whatever our experience, unbiased experience yields, then that would then bring about an understanding, a clearer understanding of the world. So of course, Newton did not adhere to the worldview supplied by the Christians that was gotten from Plato, a mixture of Plato and Aristotle, and he advocated this universe that was mechanical, in which there was fixed time and space and fixed laws. What remained after that was to just interpret the universe in terms of this outlook. Even his method, which began with induction, contributed to a worldview in which the later scientists became deductive. Can you see that? Because all the experiments that were done after that were done in order to fit it into that paradigm. So worldview is the general understanding, the framework in which we think. But I will go and say no. Worldview is a general understanding of the nature of existence. Paradigm then are the set of ideas constructed in that worldview, in which then we interpret our interaction of the world. So even though he advocated the inductive method, his thoughts contributed a paradigm, and subsequent inductive experiments were actually tarnished with a deductive mindset. Similarly, Darwin. He observed through induction, he arrived at this notion of the progression of species through the process of survival of the fittest and natural selection. Subsequent to him, Every other observer modeled, fashioned, and structured his and her observations in accordance with the Darwinian understanding of evolution. This is the frailty of the human mind, by the way. We have fixed worldviews, and we think in accordance with those worldviews. The first thing we need to ask is that if we don't have a fixed worldview, how can we go forward? There is no response. What should naturally happen is that we construct a worldview through the inductive process, challenge it, reconstruct a broader one. We are talking about a divine principle here that is in sync with existence as existence is, and we'll explain that a little later on if we get to it, and that is the principle of no finality. That when we have a worldview, it must be on the basis of no finality. It is true for today, but it needn't be true. So if we observe anything that is inconsistent with it, we shouldn't necessarily try and modify it and fit it into the worldview, but maybe we should ask another question. Is there something else there that accommodates this event that does not fit neatly with this understanding? And of course, with the understanding of quantum physics, relativity of time and space, Newtonian worldview collapsed. It is only accurate to a certain extent to certain observations. But there is a greater world there that enjoys greater principles. Now, in that way, if we were to think to ourselves, and I'm building towards the existentialist outlook and paradigm, if we were to think to ourselves and ask, are there two worlds, truly? Is there a spiritual world and a physical world? Is the physical world a physical world or a material world as me and you describe it? Truly, is there something like that? Is there a mind and body duality in the way in which Descartes understood it? Yes, we know. The way in which we think and understand and feel and perceive is very different to the matter of our bodies. We know this. But are they so distinct as Descartes puts it? We know there is a spiritual realm. We know. But is the spiritual realm outside existence? We know there is God. But is God beyond the world and controls the world from above? If this is the case, then our understanding of the Quran will be that it's been revealed from the supernatural world and come upon this world. The very first thing we will ask is that does it even relate to me in the realist sense, if it's not of this world? Then we will advocate the theory, well, I myself have come from the other world and I've come into this body. And then it becomes nonsensical because I am what I am right now. This is what I am. I don't know of any identity beyond this. And if indeed I existed before this world, then what am I doing here? If I've attained everything that I've attained previously, then what is this? Look at the absurd world in which we are living. A world in which God knows everything before He creates. He knows everything till its end. Oh God, if you know everything from before you created me, and you know every instance of what is happening, to the extent that nothing can defy your will and your knowledge, then what am I doing here? Why have you brought me about? Is this meaningful at all? And then you will place me into heaven and hell. Well, why didn't you just do that from the very start? Spare yourself and me this arduous process of life. Look at the nonsensical consequences it has. You did all of this to cause 7 billion people to suffer. This dualistic worldview yields all these problems. But what do? We try to then patch things up to the best of our ability because we want to be loyal to God. But why should I be loyal to God? Why? I have just awoken and I'm asking myself, what is it all about? For all I know, there may not even be such an absurd God that I have to justify. And if there is a God like that, then why should I justify the one who cannot be justified? Quite rightly, he needs to be placed inside the dock. We need to judge against him and execute him for not being a good God. This is the worldview. But we ask ourselves, does it really make sense that there is a God, he's created this world and then he governs this world? Is there a spiritual world other than this world? And then we come to the thoughts of people like Hume and Kant, in which they state that every argument presented by theosophers or philosophers of religions that claims to prove God fails, and truly it does fail. All of them fail. There is not a single philosophical argument at its utmost sophistication that proves the existence of God. Why? Because we are looking at the properties of this world, which is claimed to be a physical world, and trying to prove a world that is non-physical, nothing like this. We are making a huge leap from one to the other without making a bridge to justify this leap that we are making. So the very first thing we ask is this: is this worldview an accurate one? And the answer is no. It doesn't seem to be accurate at all. Maybe what we call matter is the spirit. There is no God that is out, above, beyond. There can't be. All you observe is existence. The glorious of existence is that we see. This is it. This is what we are observing. And as we acquire sophistication in creating those instruments that can break through matter, we are discovering more wonders of this world. We are discovering how a very fixed world with the law of causation is so unfixed at the very base. There is no law governing it. It's totally in a state of flux. Even to say that this world is here would be wrong nowadays in light of what we know. Even to say that my hand is here, it's only here because I'm observing it. It may not be here. So the first thing we do is we say, well, let's just see what is there and base it on that. So the first thing we say is that our worldview ought to be that there is existence. And it is one existence. And we do not know anything beyond this existence. If we can have that attitude, that there is only one existence and nothing beyond existence, and that is all we can observe and understand. I don't know anything beyond that. It is. There is. Then we go into the second prelude. If that is the case, that there is only one existence, then we come to divine revelation. What do we understand by revelation in Quran? There are a few issues we need to discuss here, but I will make it very brief and just touch on one. We need to go beyond that. That instead of presuming that the Quran has come from a divine source that is well beyond and come to guide us, and therefore the Quran imposes upon us the way in which we ought to be, maybe we can say, due to there being one singular existence, the Quran is nothing but a document of existence, as existence is. In that case, the Quran is no different than me or any facet of existence. The only difference is that it claims to be the entirety of existence, and I am an aspect of existence. But we both enjoy the truth at the same level. A tree is different from a blade of grass, yet they are equal existence. In that they share. If that is the understanding of the Quran, then in that case, the Quran has to be in sync with the properties of existence as existence is. What we mean here is that there aren't any supernatural methods that we need to involve in the understanding of the Quran. All we need to do is to observe existence, and those salient principles of existence we can apply to the Quran, and it will yield itself. Now the Quran itself bears witness to this. Imam Khomeini, in one of his lectures, he stated the verse أَفَلَا يَنْظُرُونَ إِلَى الْإِبِلِ كَيْفَ خُلِقَتْ وَإِلَى السَّمَاءِ كَيْفَ رُفِعَتْ وَإِلَى الْأَرْضِ كَيْفَ سُطِحَتْ. Do you not? وَإِلَى الْجِبَالِ كَيْفَ نُصِبَتْ. If we look at these verses, then do you not consider the camel, how it has been created, or the sky, how it has been raised, or the earth, how it has been spread, or the mountains, how they have been pegged? We see that this is the Quran descending through layers of existence before it comes to me and you, where it becomes meaningful. What does this mean? What this means is that the Quran is nothing but existence. And it is no different from me and you or any other level of existence. The only difference is that existence in itself has a lot of ambiguity. So the Quran had to arrive at a level where it was clear enough for me and you to understand. Allah points at this in the Quran. إِنَّهُ لَقُرْآنٌ كَرِيمٌ فِي كِتَابٍ مَكْنُونٍ. It is the Quran Kareem in the hidden book. And at other times he is saying it's the Quran in Lawhul Mahfuz, in the sacred tablet. On many occasions it is saying it is the book. But it seems therefore that this Quran is not the book, but an explication of the book. And the book here is most akin to existence in its entirety. And the Quran is an explication of that book which exists in its entirety. So that's the first thing we will understand, that the Quran is an existential work like anything else. There is nothing supernatural about it. But this then brings in other ideas and implications. One is that if it is existential, then it has to follow the properties of existence. When we look at existence at large, we find that yes, it has its own properties. It is always evolving. And the nature of evolution is a very unique nature, that it builds upon its own strengths. That's the first thing that we understand from existence. And therefore that needs to be borne in mind when we read the Quran. And we need to explain these principles. Two, existence is as it is. Everything is within it. There is nothing being added to it. It's just elaborating itself. Three, existence is always in the present. There is no past or future for existence. It's the absolute now. The Quran has to be in the absolute now, if it is a reflection of existence in its entirety. Three, existence has relativity in there. The Quran needs to have this relativity. Four, I'm just pointing these factors out. There are many. I'm just going to point out the main ones. Four, there is subjectivity within existence. I understand the world as my world. And there is objectivity in the world. The Quran must enjoy both of these aspects. There is universality in existence. We can't deny. The Quran has to be understood in its universal context as well. And it is here we begin to see that how it has been possible for every school of thought to justify itself through the Quran, despite the fact that they are in opposition to each other. Imagine. The Mu'tazila are in opposition to the Ash'ari, and both are equally justifying their standpoint from the Quran. How amazing. The political systems that we have, all of them will justify themselves from the Quran. The only reason is because existence has all these facets within itself. And that is why the Quran has everything within itself. Now, for a moment, let us look at the worldview of Ibn Arabi and people like Sadra, but it's actually Ibn Arabi. And Sadra only gives explanation to Ibn Arabi. When Ibn Arabi talks about, without mentioning the term unity of being, but he talks about singular existence, they talk about wujud shakhsi, individual existence. Yes? Existence is an individual existence, and that is a necessary existence. We won't go into that for now. But according to that, there is nothing outside the ambit of existence. The other thing is that there is no duality in existence, there's nothing but singularity in existence. There is no God world, spirit, matter, mind, body. It's one beautiful, unique existence. The fact that Moses' staff could turn into a serpent and could resume the form of a staff shows that existence is beyond what we have understood. Matter is not what we understand. The very fact that Mary could give birth to the Word of God shows that it is possible for matter in its so mundane state to yield something so spiritual. It's amazing the way in which existence is. So Ibn Arabi spoke of unity of being, an individual entity. And he is the one who introduced the term Nafasur Rahman, the breath of the merciful. Possibly from the hadith of the Prophet, in which when Uwais came to meet the Prophet and left without meeting him, the Prophet said, I indeed feel the fragrance or the breath of the merciful from the side of Yemen. Or from whatever he described, but he used the word, the breath of the merciful. Now Ibn Arabi talks of existence in accordance with the du'as of the Imams, that it is nothing but words. It's nothing but words. Sadra comes and clarifies this. And he states, yes, the whole of existence is the word of God. And the word he describes at three levels. This is just for us to have at the back of our minds if we ever again resume the talks on the principles of interpretation. He states the words are of three types. Either al-kalam al-ibda'i, as he puts it, the originating word, or kalam al-takwini, the creative word, or kalam al-tashri'i, the revelative word. What this means is that as the words are established by the breath, and as the words subsist and exist by the pronouncer and the one who speaks, the world at large is the breath of God. And this breath is fashioned by the words. And in that way, it's nothing but the thought of God that are being given voice to. And they are there so long as He wants to give. I mean, we don't want to go too much into it, but we want to work back at Sadra. So according to Sadra, the reason Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks of the book in the Quran, there's an overwhelming emphasis on words and book and writers and scribes in the Quran, wherever you read it. We gave them a portion of the book. The scribes are scribing everything they do. They will find the scrolls hung upon their necks. This is your book, لا يغادر منه صغيرة ولا كبيرة. Everything is about book and writing and words. So he comes to this understanding that the world as a whole is at three levels of words. The originating word, when Allah says kun, become. And that is absolutely in the image of God. Two is the creative word, where nothing in nature can defy God. And three is the revelative word, in which people can go against it or go in accordance with it. So this is the nature of the Quran and the nature of the world. Now we can put it differently, that it's the same author who paints on a canvas, but the painting is a painting that is animated. It moves. And he speaks his thoughts. And that is the Quran. The Quran mirrors existence as it opens up. And so does the Quran, it opens up. It's exact copy of existence as existence is. And therefore, whatever property existence enjoys, the Quran by priority enjoys that property. And if we can understand this introduction, then we will understand that yes, there is a unique method in interpreting the Quran, and then a fashion in which, or manner in which the Quran can guide us. The third thing is the human individual. Now the Quran is existence like the world is existence. The only thing is Quran is static, the world is in motion. The motion of the Quran is in its words and the ambiguity of its words and the word-meaning relationship, that the meanings keep on changing with time. But just as the world keeps on changing from the primitive man to the sophisticated man, but they've all been connected, the meanings of the Quran have to all be connected at all points. We will no longer be forced through our theological persuasions to interpret the words of God in accordance with our worldview. When we say the hand of God is on their hand, we will say, if Allah is saying His hand is on their hand, then it means His hand is on their hand. And I do not suspend judgment, I want to understand it. But the hand can mean many different things at many different levels. But if the word hand is used, then it means hand. Otherwise, Allah, the master of words, could have used another word. Yes? And then, when we have this verse, the people of hell will never enter into paradise hatta yalij al-jamal fi sammil khiyat, until the camel enters through the eye of a needle. All the Mufassirin will say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the impossibility of the people of hell getting out of hell. At an existentialist level of interpretation, we'll say no, Allah does not use words uselessly. Why would He give such why would He use such words and give such a sentence that until the camel enters through the eye of a needle? Why would He say that? Obviously it means there is more to it at an existentialist level than what we have understood. When we look at the Quran in this way, it is then subject to the properties of existence in its interpretation. Now, the human being. Now, the human being is meant to understand this Quran. Here there are two discussions. The great human upon which the Quran was revealed, Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Is it at all possible for him to become the recipient of the truth in its entirety, given that he is the aspect of the truth? Many question this, and indeed, if we were objective, and I want to point at that in the few minutes that remain, we ourselves would question that no, there are many verses in the Quran that belong only to the Prophet, unless of course we are not understanding them. Here again, our existentialist outlook will impel us to interpret everything in accordance with what we want. But if we have the principle of no finality, then again it offers some respite that no, we can challenge our own selves in our own outlook of existence. Is that prophet truly a recipient of the truth as the truth stands in itself? If that's the case, then we will have to admit first and foremost that the prophet could not understand the Quran in its entirety. Now I know that might be shocking. Allah says, from it are ayat muhkamat, and from it are mutashabihat. Yes? I forgot on the verse, minha ayatun muhkamat hunna umul kitab wa ukhra mutashabihat. There are, and we want to discuss that at some later stage if Allah ever wishes, there are firm verses and then there are ambiguous verses. The Imam said, ambiguity is for the one who is ignorant of it. Obviously, the one who is ignorant of it, for them there is ambiguity. But there is something quite unique at the existentialist level. Look at this universe that we understand. By Allah, we understand it, and hence we are able to function. And by God, we don't understand it at all. This universe is not what we understand at all. In times of Aristotle, they understood a universe. As I swear by Allah, they swore by Allah. But today we know they did not understand the universe, don't we? In Newton's time, they swore by God, we understand this world of ours. But by God, they did not understand it. In Einstein's time, with the theory of relativity, general and special relativity, by God they understood the universe, yet they did not understand the cosmos. Today, with quantum physics at that subatomic level, we are baffled and we are saying, wow, we are beginning to understand universe that has no laws. By Allah, we don't understand anything. It is there, and yet it is not there. The Prophet understood at his level to the best of any creature's ability. But the essence of God is the essence of God. Huwa hu, He is He. La ya'lam kayfa huwa illa hu. The Prophet himself was admitting this, that none knows how He is save He. And if the Quran is the explication of existence in its entirety, then Prophet is a part and parcel of that explication. He can never fully grasp it. Is that understood? The Prophet can never fully understand it because it's riddled with ambiguity totally. But his understanding is greater than the universe put together. Yet he can't understand it as Allah understands the truth of His own beauty and divine essence. So here comes the question. At the level of his personal understanding, he might have been relative. But at the level of a means and a medium, was he capable of giving the entirety of the truth without being able to embrace the entirety of the truth? The answer is yes. The Jews ask him, what is your God? He awaits a response. There is no response. They ask, he tells them, go away, come back tomorrow. This happens for 3 or 4 days. Jibreel comes to him and he says, say, Qul. Muhammad Rasulullah says, Qul. What does that say to you? If you were to ask me a question and I would respond to you and say in response, you would not repeat the word say, would you? You wouldn't. But Muhammad Rasulullah repeats, Qul. He should have by right said only, Huwa Allahu Ahad, not repeat the Qul. But he said, Qul Huwa Allahu Ahad. Can you see that? So at the level of him being a recipient, it seems he was an untarnished means for the conveyance of the truth in its entirety at the human level. But at the level of his own appreciation of the truth, it seems even he could not appreciate the essence of God as the essence of God. So we are making a distinction in the personality of the Prophet here. Because I know there is this discussion and hence I wanted to point at this. Now, what problems do we have at the level of our understanding? And I just want to clarify this very, very quickly and finish. We have this desire to accept only that conforms with our established beliefs. Is that a human condition or not? Absolutely. Then there are distortions resulting from our habitual ways of thinking. 3, the problem of language. We use words very, very loosely. They mean one thing and we use them for other things. In fact, if we were to understand the nature of words, we will know that nobody can describe to another person even the simplest of things. When I say this texture is rough, you don't know what I'm feeling. When I say this is white, you don't know what I'm seeing. We have agreed on certain terms very broadly that for pragmatic reasons that we can conduct life. And then it comes to emotions, and that is another language altogether. Beautiful, ugly, love, hate, these are things we can't express at all. The problem of language. And then we form allegiance with schools of thought, and that distorts our whole appreciation. Now, if we were to look at the principles of existence, then maybe we can benefit at this subjective level as well. And we will talk about this if God so wishes. That we need to be objective from within ourselves and look at the world for what it is and look at the Quran for what it is. We need to rid ourselves of every preconditioned state. I call certain states external and internal existential states that need to be applied both outside ourselves and within ourselves. Objectivity needs to be applied at an intellectual level in order to appreciate the world as it is. And internally to our psychological state, so that we are not moved to impose upon the Quran or the world any form or structure which does not belong there. Similarly, at that subjective level, we need to uphold the principle of no finality and ever renewing change. I shall stop here, and inshallah, this will hopefully serve as a prelude for future. Can we have a salawat, please? I have never seen so many drowsy faces as I've done today. It's just a very objective observation of mine. Okay.
Thank you, Shaykh Arif, for that very thought-provoking lecture. We'd like to open the floor up for questions. So if we start from the ladies, any questions?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for the very moving, thoughtful, waking up talk, Shaykh Arif. It seems human being has got a genius way to justify everything. So according to Imam Ghazali, when he wrote the Ihya al-Ulum ad-Din, he said after Quran, this book would be sufficient for the people to reach the Lord. So what you were saying, that we have got all these kind of ideas to think and to justify what the way we've been brought up, but then what is the, how we can get to the bottom of the matter, what was the purpose, what is it all about, and how can we bring all these theology and thought together and bring the unity in the name of one God.
Sounds impossible to me, but anyway. As far as...
on the level that we can live in harmony, of course. The differences, the opposition is always a way for human being to grow in perfection.
The first thing about guidance from the Quran, you see, there is, according to the existentialist model, when we talk about existentialist paradigm, what we mean is that we use the properties of existence, and through using the properties of existence, make the interpretation of the Quran fall in line with the nature of existence as existence is. Yes? Well, that's what we mean by existentialist paradigm. Now that's all we are saying here. But what that means is that the Quran cannot tell us anything that is not there already, because it's the mirror of existence as existence is. Even the verses that talk about the galaxies that open up and they resemble a rose dipped in oil, obviously the people in the time of the Prophet did not understand that. But today, with the aid of the Hubble telescope, we are seeing it. So the Quran in that way cannot impose truth. It can only reveal the truth that is already there. Yes? So when Imam Ghazali says that this book is enough as a guidance, the whole of this notion of guidance needs to be qualified. What do we mean by guidance? There cannot be an external truth or an alien truth imposed upon the human mind. We cannot accept anything that we don't already recognize. When the Prophet says, speak the truth, it's good for you, we already recognize this. And hence the Prophet said, I am the outer prophet who has come to awaken the inner prophet. And hence the Quran calls itself the reminder. Yes? Because we are the living truth. Now the guidance of the Quran is in two ways. We want to explain all these principles. But we are what we call the hermeneutic keys to open up the Quran and its meanings, on the one hand. On the other hand, the Quran is a guide in accordance with existence when we submit to it. How? My existence has only been realized to a particular extent, whereas the Quran offers insights into existence as it is in itself. Now, if I can rid myself of my own conditioning, yes, then very objectively I can go into the Quran and receive guidance through it, in the sense of it can disclose to me facets of existence that I would never ever discover at various different levels, maybe the physical level and spiritual level as well. As far as how to bring about unity, I think there is ample within the substance within the Quran to bring about human unity, because it talks of one religion, it talks of one humanity, it talks of one God, it talks of true trends within human beings, and these are common facets for humanity at large. We need to change our outlook to the whole world, and that would bring about tolerance and harmony. But that is something that all of us need to do with all other faiths and people of all persuasions.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you very much for your talk. A lot of people, it's very difficult to understand the Prophet's life and the Imam's life in the way that we understand it, whilst also adhering to a lot of what you said, in the sense that some of the principles that we talk about, for example, the Imam being in a fi maqam bayan al-hukm al-kulli, he can just explain everything because of who he is and where he is and the position. How can we understand that from his life, given that he is restricted by his existence and the time that he is in?
Maqamul bayan is for that context only. Yes, this is a flaw in our legal methodology. Yes, and if we can bring our legal methodology in line with the principles of existence or within the existentialist paradigm, we will see that the Imam only uttered that statement because it was productive at an existentialist level. And that statement in itself is subject to evolutionary renewal. So the Imam may have been pointing out at an ethos which then acquires different forms and different shapes. It is the failure of the Muslim mind that is causing the statement of the Imam to be the end within itself in that form in which it has come from the Imam, without looking into the principles as to why did the Imam say this as opposed to saying something else. When I talk about the interpretation of the Quran at an existentialist level, we're also talking about the hadith of the Prophet and the Imams. But the caliber of the Quran is distinct. If we are objective, we will say these portions of the Quran do not make sense, and we would be very true to our humanity. Similarly, we will say that this instruction of the Prophet was confined. It does not have application to beyond that context or time, if we were to become existentialist. Yes?
But isn't the problem with that then there's a lot of personal opinion or right, or how do you, if we try to get to the end?
If we can have the principles of existence, that existence first and foremost, and maybe we can discuss this at a later date, there is one salient property of existence, and that is that it is always elaborating itself. Elaboration yields one property, and that is liberation. It frees itself and liberates itself at all points. Now, if we can have these principles, underlying principles, in which, in whose light we can interpret the hadith of the Prophet, we will say that whatever is productive at an existential level ought to be. When we come to the normative statements, we say it ought to be in accordance with this. Can you see that? Moral judgments do not have any meaning until they are intuitive. They must have an intuitive foundation. The intuitive foundation can only be the way and the manner of existence, for that is the only truth. Yes? But these are different discussions altogether.
Alaikum.
I
just wanted to ask a question about the definition of existence. You said that existence has a kind of unity and that it has certain properties. How then do we understand Allah? Because we generally, traditionally consider Allah to be different from creation, and that He doesn't change and that He doesn't have these properties of existence that you mentioned.
Let's talk about existence in its entirety, and then we can explain a little bit of Allah Jalla Jalaluhu. This is London. which is distinct from Birmingham, yes? But in terms of England, it is not distinguished from Birmingham. But England is other than Scotland and Ireland, for example. But in terms of, well, Northern Ireland, but in terms of Great Britain, we can't distinguish England from Scotland from Northern Ireland. But we can discern Great Britain from Europe, from France. But in terms of Europe, we can't distinguish Great Britain from France. But we can distinguish Europe from Asia. But in terms of the world, we can't distinguish any country from any other or any continent. But we can distinguish the Earth from Jupiter. But we can then say, well, in terms of the solar system, we can't. Then we say, well, then we can distinguish ourselves from other solar systems. And it's going to be a long-winded answer, sorry. But in terms of the Milky Way, I'm not underestimating our intelligence here, but that's the best way I've learned to explain. But in terms of the Milky Way, we can distinguish ourselves from the rest of the galaxies, yes? Now we are saying, okay, why don't we take the universe, the five-dimensional universe, in which there are three extensions with time and space. When we take that universe, then we can't distinguish any of these galaxies, and maybe we can distinguish it from a universe that is 10-dimensional. Let's say, well, why don't we take all the universes as they are and all existences as they are? When we do that, we will say, oh, there is nothing to contrast existence with, because there is no such thing as non-existence. Non-existence, even the notion of non-existence within the mind, is a mental existence. The very fact that we can talk about it shows it exists at some level. So there is nothing other than existence. There is nothing to compare existence with. This existence doesn't have time, doesn't have space. Time and space are equal parts of existence. It doesn't have good, it doesn't have evil. It doesn't have beginning, it doesn't have end. It doesn't have a yesterday, it doesn't have a today, it doesn't have a tomorrow. It's entirely within the now and present. It is here then that we begin to realize that yes, existence is one thing. It's unity. There is no discernible God other than the world. Yes, this is the other, yes? But it's the other just like a wave is the other than the ocean. But in reality, it is nothing but the ocean. My thoughts are other than me, but yet they are nothing but me. My speech is other than me, yet it's nothing but an expression of me. This is the nature of God and world, because all are existence. Now when we say that there was God and there was nothing with Him, then what did He create from? Can you see that? The Prophet said, Allah created Adam in His own image, and how could He have done otherwise? Imagine that you are the only individual in the entirety of existence, and you felt lonely. But there is no example that you can look at. There is nothing to contrast you. There's only you. And you wanted to imagine something or create something. You would only imagine it in your own form, won't you? Because you have no other form to compare it with. Can you imagine? Can you understand that? When God created the world, it is all entirely in His own image. But there wasn't any clay from which He shaped the Big Bang and brought it about, because that clay would be as eternal as He. It would be a second God. Can you see that? This is what we mean that there is unity of existence. Yes? And existence as a whole is beautiful. And that's why we understand Allah at two levels. Lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. There is nothing like Him, because existence as existence is so beyond us, we can't understand. Even the notions of infinity and finiteness we can't understand. How will we be able to understand and capture the whole existence in its entirety? And hence, وَلَمْ يَكُلْ لَهُ كُفُوًا أَحَدٍ. There is nothing like Him. But at the same time, هُوَ مَعَكُمْ أَيْنَمَا كُنْتُمْ. He is with you wherever you are. أَيْنَمَا تَوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ. Wherever you turn, there you shall find the face of God. هُوَ الْأَوَّلُ وَالْآخِرُ وَالظَّاهِرُ وَالْبَاطِنُ. He is the first, He is the last, He is the apparent, He is the hidden. He is as much immanent as He is transcendent. Simultaneously, both are Him. Yes?
السلام عليكم شيخ.
عليكم السلام.
أحسنتم. Sheikh, I just wanted to ask you whether there is any references you can refer us to, or any tafsir of Quran that you think is objective and helpful.
I think Ayatul Tabatabay's tafsir is very, very good, but it's not entirely existential, but it's very good. It's phenomenal. His methodology is beautiful, interpreting the Quran from the Quran in line with the verse, Minha muhkamat hunna ummul kitab wa ukhra mutashabihat. He's taking all the mutashabih and referring them to the muhkamat. And it's a wonderful, brilliant tafsir. But then there are other Sunni tafsirs as well, which are phenomenal, yes? Which are very, very good. But to the best of my knowledge, there are none that are interpreting the Quran at the existentialist level, yes? But I can point you at books of philosophers who talk about existence and the properties of existence to an extent. Western philosophers such as Hegel, who talk about the dialectics of history. It's a phenomenal idea. The thesis, synthesis, antithesis and synthesis. It's a wonderful idea to begin to understand the evolution of existence. So there are quite a number of philosophers and philosophical systems and thoughts that we can benefit from. So if somebody can email me afterwards, I can probably share these thoughts.
Talking about young people who want to know more and who might get lost if they read the writings of Western philosophers.
No. Western philosophers and the Muslim philosophers are equal revelations of God. There is no Western philosopher, there is no Muslim philosopher. Philosophy is the inquiry of the truth. In the 20th century, philosophy acquired the role of clarifying language. That was it, nothing more than that. But the Muslims have been stuck on Aristotle's ethics. Yes? Ever since Aristotle's logic and works were introduced in the Abbasid era. Well, maybe the late Umayyad era and the early and then the mid-Abbasid era. We are following Aristotle's thought. We are still following the Platonic thought of two worlds, the perfect world and the amorphous world that is in flux. There is no such thing as Muslim thought and non-Muslim thought. It is divine human thought. It can't be otherwise. Yes? When a Muslim says our philosophy, it doesn't mean anything. It just means the conception of a Muslim, nothing else. Yes? In fact, when I read Western philosophers, I find glimpses of truth that I've not found anywhere in the Muslim thought.
Sure, but there are philosophers like Marx, who's a human being as well.
What a wonderful theory Marx is giving of dialectics, materialism and dialectics of matter. It's so phenomenal. I mean, of course, we can say there's a flaw here, there's a flaw here, there's a flaw here. When he constructs his political system on the means of historical materialism, it's phenomenal. When Darwin talks about evolution, of course we know that genes do not mutate in the way that he is saying. But it's wonderful. It's the hallmark of universe that is evolving. Yes? Thought is divine thought. When you look at any of the Shia books, you will not be able to discern what came from Sunni, what came from Shia. Shia, Sunni run together. You go to any library of philosophy, fiqh, usul, you will find Sunni work, Shia work in a chronological order. We all benefit from each other. Yes? Yeah, you're welcome.
We'll end there.
Thank you.
Salawat.